Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Happy 1st of May. Is May? Yeah, is it May Day? I don't know if it's May Day because it's a bank holiday on Monday, isn't it? But today is May Day because it's the 1st of May. But then the bank holiday is also May Day. I don't know. I don't care. The sun's out. I'm very happy. I've been sunning myself in the garden, and it's really hard to get work done when you work from home and the sun's out and you could sit in your garden. You always end up choosing sitting in the garden over getting stuff done. So I'm very glad to be here because I'm being forced into actually doing something productive rather than just lying in the heat like my dog. My dog has found a lovely spot in the grass where she just suns herself all day long. What a lovely way to live. Perfect. Anyway, let's talk about stencils. So I do a lot of sort of collage and a lot of sort of cut and pasty type art. So this one's a little bit different today. It does involve cutting and sticking. Actually, not sticking, just cutting. I just quite like the idea of doing a sort of stencil art where we create our own stencil and then use lots of different things to sort of make different patterns. So it should be a bit of fun. Good morning, Irene. Glad to see you're here. Always on my sessions. I must be doing something right. I must be. So yeah, it's just a bit of an experiment, really. It's a bit of fun. I've just noticed that my camera is quite sort of blurry, and I think I'm just gonna try and clean it with my t-shirt because I'm wondering if it's from the heat, because I have been outside. Let's see if that's better. That's slightly clearer, isn't it? I've given my lens a clean. Hopefully that will work quite nicely. It's because it's been outside, and you know when your devices all get too hot and it says I'm too hot to be out here, I need to come inside. That's what my phone has been saying. So this is going to be really, really simple and a bit of fun. And again, I say this every single time. I usually try these out with my kids. The kids can get involved as well. Really good fun. I just quite like the idea of making a simple stencil, but it looking quite sophisticated and sort of, you know, quite arty. And we're just going to use one colour today. So I've got myself a big blob of black paint on an old plate, this is not a plate that we eat off anymore. This is a painting plate. So I've just got myself a blob of black paint. Now, you don't have to do black. Obviously, as you can see on my example pieces here, I've used a dark red. I think a dark colour works the best, especially if we're working on white paper. So I think one colour works really well, but you can always try more than one colour if you so wish. So I'm going to put my example pieces to one side and then just sort of explain what we're going to do. I've got loads of bits and bobs around today. I'm going to make an absolute mess, I think, is what's going to happen. That usually happens, that's fine. And the first thing that you're going to need is a picture. So I have drawn here a very, very simple image. I think it works quite nicely as a person. I think a person works quite well. There's a lot you can do with it. And we're going to draw our thing, and then we're going to give it some extra bits and bobs that we're going to cut out as well. I'll show you in a minute because I have done an example on some acetate, which I'll talk to you about. But I think what I realised is it's a very, very hard material to work with. So I'm not going to suggest that you do it, but I'll show you what I mean shortly. So this drawing here, I've just done a nice block drawing that's simple, really easy to draw. I want it to be simple so that I can cut it out, essentially. It has to be easy to cut out. You don't have to draw your own. If you've got access to a printer, you could always sort of type into Google sort of like person silhouette or sort of silhouette illustration, something like that, so that it's not too detailed, not got too many bits and bobs to cut out. And then you could use that because essentially we're going to trace over it. So I've got myself some tracing paper. I've just got a normal, it's not fancy stuff. You don't need to buy fancy tracing paper. And if you don't have tracing paper, you could use greaseproof paper from your kitchen. That works just as well. The only reason I tend to use tracing paper is because I always have loads of it because I use it a lot. But also with greaseproof paper, it's often like rolled up. And so it can be quite annoying to flatten out. But if you haven't got tracing paper, greaseproof paper is essentially the same thing. just a bit more rolled up. So we're going to put our tracing paper onto our image. And now I've got just a normal black fine liner, but the only reason I'm using fine liner is so you guys can see it on the camera, because the camera doesn't pick up light colours very well. So I would suggest doing this bit with a pencil. I don't know why I'm suggesting you do it with a pencil. You don't have to. You can do it with anything, actually. But I'm just letting you know it doesn't have to be a black pen. But I'm only doing this so that you can kind of see. I mean, you might not even be able to see the line because it's got a black picture underneath it. I should have gone with a nice bright colour, shouldn't I? Never mind. But essentially, I'm just tracing my image. And this should be super simple because it's a nice, easy one. It's nothing too fancy. And I'm going to trace all the way around it. One of the things you might want to consider when you're drawing your image, if you are in fact drawing your picture, is to just think about the fact that this is going to be cut out. This is going to be a hole. And so you might want to think about where you're putting things. So, for example, I've tried to make it really obvious that she's got 2 arms and 2 hands and there's a gap in between them. So if I hadn't left this gap here, then this bit would be a little bit lost. So it's just little things like that. But again, the simpler, the better. This would work really well, I think, with like a face as well. I think that would look quite nice. Anything that you can sort of stencil quite nicely, put a lot of paint on, as you'll see shortly. But it needs to be simple. That's the main thing. I think an animal would work really well actually as well. So if you had like a silhouette of like a cat or whatever animal you want, I think that would also work really nicely. So I'm just tracing around it. I'm holding this down. And if you don't want to hold down your image, you can always tape it to the paper. And then as you can see, you've got your image on the tracing paper. Simple as that. And that's why you don't need to worry too much about what image you're using. So if you are printing one off or, you know, that sort of thing, because you're just going to trace it. So it doesn't need to be fancy. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to cut out our image. Do I want to do some extra bits on here? Do you know what? Let's do some more tracing first, or some drawing, in fact. I'm going to get another piece of tracing paper, because what I want to do is I want to accompany my person with some accessories or some bits and bobs that we can also draw. So at this point, I'm going to show you my acetate example. I don't want you to think for any second that you need to use acetate. I thought that acetate would be perfect because it's nice and thick. It works in the same way as tracing paper, and you can use it over and over again. If you've got acetate and you're quite good at sort of using cutting tools, so I've got a little craft knife here, and you can see I've got my craft board here so that I don't make marks on my desk, then please go for it with acetate, have a try. But what I would say is that I really struggled to cut these out. It was really hard to do and it really hurt my fingers. So please don't use acetate if you're not used to using cutting tools and if you've not got very strong hands or wrists or fingers, because in fact, I think I might have even got like a blister on my finger really trying to cut these out, which is pretty wild. But if you're quite good at cutting stuff out and that's something you're used to doing, then use acetate because it's strong and it will last longer. You'll be able to do more with it. But I really struggled with this. But the reason I'm showing you is you can see here I've added some bits and bobs that we can use as extra stencils. So we've got a crown, a heart, and a little apple. So we're going to use those same ones. And in fact, what I might do is I might use the acetate one to trace them onto this bit of tracing paper. Now, what I would say with the accessories is you kind of want to leave quite a big gap between them so that you don't over stencil. I'll show you what I mean in just a second. So I've just drawn around my crown there. Lovely. And then I'm going to leave a nice gap for the heart. So there's the heart and the crown, and there's a nice big gap in between them. So when I cut them out, when I'm stenciling, blah, 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 the stencil isn't then going into this other hole as well, essentially. And then we've got this lovely apple here. I'll do that down here. Just wondering if I should do another accessory. Just wondering what else you might have. Maybe like some kind of bow or something. Yeah, we could do a tiny little bow, couldn't we? So I'm just drawing that out really simply, and then I can cut it out. Perfect. So now we've got our images. So we've got our main one, which is our person. And the way I've sort of worked it is that I want these little bits and bobs to either sit within the person, on the person, or around the person. So when you're scaling your accessories, you want to make sure that they fit with your main image. So I will have, when I did the acetate one, I would have sort of marked up how big I want the crown to be so that it will sit on her head nicely. You know what I mean? That sort of thing. So now we've got all of our images, we can cut them out. As you can see, I've got a cutting board so that I don't make marks in my table. And I've got a craft knife. However, and I'm going to start cutting straight away because we've got loads to get through. You will find, I find personally, it quite difficult. So tracing paper is quite a difficult one to cut out, I think. So if you don't want to use a craft knife, then you can use scissors. And in fact, I will use scissors in just a moment. I'm just going to try and get these big bits done. So I've got a cut out stencil to use. Actually, I'm saying this is quite difficult. This is working quite nicely. I think maybe it's because I've got a new craft knife and it's working better than the old one. So I originally said, oh, it's awful. But actually, if you've got a new craft knife, it's quite easy. You don't have to press nearly as hard as you do with the acetate. And it's because you're having to sort of press with your index finger on this groove bit here to hold it down. That was the bit that I was really struggling with on the acetate, and it was really rubbing on the end of my index finger. So, and again, as I said, you don't have to use craft knives if you don't feel confident using them. I'm using it right now just because I know it will be quicker than the scissors. But essentially, you can, with something this big as well, it's very easy to do that old thing where you sort of bend it in half, cut a great big hole in the middle, and then work your way around it with a pair of scissors. So I might cut a little bit out with some nail scissors, just so that you can see how we do it. I'm trying to remember where we've gone now. You will just, I think, you'll probably just get a slightly better kind of sharp line that is the shape you want it if you use a knife. I just think they're a bit more clean cut than scissors. And you can tell me that I'm completely wrong and that you're better with a pair of scissors. That's fine. I think, to be honest, it's much of a muchness really, isn't it? What I find with the craft knife is sometimes you don't know if you've gone through or not. And so you sometimes have to go over things a couple of times. Whereas with the scissors, you're obviously making your cut and it's quite obvious. So like this corner here, can you see it's sort of like I've not cut it and I'm trying to pull it out of its little circle, its little area. And yes, this is going much more nicely than the first attempt that I had. And you can get craft knives very cheaply. I've noticed, I'm not going to go and reach them because they're over there in my desk, over there somewhere. But you can buy packs of little craft knives from like B&Q and Wicks and places like that because they're used in sort of woodwork and decorating and stuff. And a pack of those, generally speaking, are much cheaper than in craft shops. I think they sort of whack the prices up in craft shops because they're being used for craft rather than like hardware. So if you are interested in getting craft knives, go to a hardware store first because they are much cheaper. There we go. So I'm just checking that the lines are being completely cut out. This is the hardest bit, this little tiny seam here. So you might want to sort of hold it into place because I don't want this tiny bit here to rip. so far so good. I'm going to go down this bit here now before I try and pull any of it out. That seems to have worked nicely. And then we'll do her little hands. And you can see now why I'm using a cutting board, because this would be disastrous on a table. So please make sure if you're using a craft knife that you've got a cutting board as well. Okay, that's worked quite well. I just think this corner here, her armpit, there we go. Now we know that's come out, that's fine. So now we'll do, how far have we got? Go around here. Again, like I am putting quite a lot of pressure on my index finger doing this. So if you do have sort of problems with dexterity or like weakness in your hands, definitely go for the nail scissors. And also, like, it can be simpler than this. It doesn't even need to be this this detailed. I've forgotten where I am. Have we done her nose? Yes, we've done her nose. Okay. So now the hardest thing with a craft knife is doing sort of a round motion. There we go. So all that's left now is her hair. And I've tried to make her hair and just her, well, just the whole of her really quite big, like a lot of space, because that's the space where we're going to be putting paint. So we want it to be really obvious. We want to be able to see it all. I think that's also why like an animal silhouette would work really well with this craft, because you've got lots of space to sort of paint, basically. Although why I made her hair sort of circular, I'll never know, because that's definitely the hardest thing to cut out. Okay. We're so close. Fabulous. Just the end of her hair to do. And then hopefully we should now be able should be able to just pull this out. Right. Oh yeah, there we go. So she's out now. That's great. So the hardest bit is going to be this bit here, is making sure that that's held down when we're painting. So we'll see. Now what I would recommend at this point is keeping hold of the bit that you've cut out, because we can always use this as part of the stenciling as well. So keep everything. That's my general rule for everything in life. It's just keep all things all of the time. That's why I do so many collage based crafts, because I hoard everything. So yeah, she's ready to go. Fantastic. And what I would say again with the acetate, I don't want to keep going back to it, but I might use it later, is that because it's stiffer, these bits will be easier to paint on, because these bits aren't going to sort of curl up like this one is. But again, you don't have to do that at all. So she's ready to go. I'm going to pop her over to one side, and then we're going to very quickly cut out our little accessories. And for this one, I'm going to have a go at the nail scissors just so I can show you. So again, you're just going to sort of like make a hole in it, and then as carefully as you can cut round the shape. Do it as neatly as you can. You want really nice sort of stark blunt edges. Make the stencil look better. I'm sort of I think my camera's at a slightly weird angle today, because I'm not sure if I keep like going out of the shot. Or maybe it's just because I'm like doing fiddly scissor work. There we go. Wonderful. That was easy. That was, I'm going to say that was easier than the craft knife. So I think we can all agree. Craft knife definitely has its merit, but absolutely not necessary if you don't have one. This should be nice and easy because it's just zigzags. And I'm not going to be able to keep these ones because I've ripped a hole in them. There you go. There's the advantage of using the craft knife, is you get to keep the inside bit as well as the outside. Whereas with these, you don't, because you have to make a hole first. Although this is getting quite tricksy now. I don't know how I'm going to do this little bow because it's quite small. It's going to be interesting. Okay. Lovely. I think also maybe corners are quite difficult with the scissors. Let's see. Like trying to get into this corner. It's going to be fun. Okay. Nice. And then last one. Okay, that's looking good. So we've got her little crown. And then we'll do the apple next. And I'm hoping this should be nice and easy. So I think, I mean, I might be wrong here, but I think straight lines are better with a craft knife and circular sort of images are easier with the scissors. So you could do a combination of the two if you have both. There we go. That's fallen on the floor. It's okay. I'll clean it later. So we've got those three, and then the last one we're going to do is our little bow tie. Bow tie. I'm not sure what it's going to be yet. And this is the fun bit as well, is you can really experiment with lots of different shapes. You don't even need to do fancy shapes. You could just do like really simple shapes like circles and squares, and they will still look really cool when we start to stencil them. Or if you have stencils, you might already have stencils available to you. I know a lot of people use stencils in their kind of collage art. So if you do have anything like that, you could use those in this craft. Okay, so we've got all of our cutouts. Now we can start to stencil them. So I'm going to start with the lady here, and I'm going to get myself paper. I don't seem to have given myself any. It's just on the table. I'm back. Luckily, I have paper with me close to hand all of the time, everywhere. So I'm just using normal white paper today. It's sort of printing paper, but it's recycled printing paper, and I really like it because it's got a nice feel to it. It's got a sort of natural feel to it. So if you're interested, it's a recycled printing paper, but you can use anything you want. You could use card. I'm hoping you're going to experiment with what you might use this for, so like greetings cards, wall art, whatever you like. Now we're getting into the craft proper. This is the exciting bit. This is sort of the bit that I wanted to sort of have an experiment with. So essentially, we're going to have a few different goes and try out some different things. I'll show you the things that I've got, and then we can just have a bit of a play. We can just have a go. So I've got a few different bits that we're going to use. I'm going to remove my craft knife and my scissors away because we don't need those again. And I'm going to show you all the different things I've got. So I've got paintbrushes. I've got some normal paintbrushes. The sort of stubbly ones are the best ones. These super cheap ones that are for kids, like toddler painting, are really good because they've got a flat end, and it means you can dab, which is good for stenciling. I've also just bought another one that's kind of similar. A couple of paintbrushes. You don't actually have to use paintbrushes at all. We're mainly going to be using sponges and things like that. So as I said before, I've got my blob of black paint, and I've got two different sponges. We'll see which one we like the best. We're going to use these mainly to create our stencils. But then, this is the fun bit, we're going to use some different textures and things to add sort of pattern to our stencil. So I have got some thick card, and you could use any kind of card. You could use like, this is probably the same consistency as a cereal box, and then I've just punched loads of holes into them, and this will create a really cool pattern when we stencil it. So I've got one of these hole punches that's just like one hole, and I've just gone along a few times, and they will create quite nice patterns. If you have a normal hole punch, you can use that as well, or anything that sort of makes a hole in things. I know you can get like little stamps that do like stars, anything like that, perfect. And then the other thing that we've got, oh, I've done another cutout, sorry. So this one I have used, again, same sort of card, and I've just cut stripes out of it. I'm going to show you how I do that really quickly. So this for me is just an offcut of card. You could say it's quite similar to like the edges of a cereal box. So you could cut the edge off a cereal box, and I've got my scissors, and at one end I've just started cutting thin lines all the way across, pretty much all the way across. Let's see how we go with that. It needs to be an even number of lines, doesn't it? So we're basically going to cut out, hopefully you can see this, every other line that we've cut, we're going to chop off. Okay, we're going to have to do one more cut just so we've got an even amount of lines. Oh. There we go. And you could keep the little lines that have come out, we could use those. But for now, we're going to use these guys. So all I'm going to do is, I've got myself some masking tape, and I'm just going to block off the end so that they don't flap about, basically. I might just thin out that masking tape because we don't want too much of it. So I'm going to pop that. In fact, let me move her out of the way so we don't accidentally get masking tape on her. And I'm just going to stick that down like that, and then turn it over and wrap it all the way over like that. And then you've got, I chop the edges off. Then we've got a lovely, very, very easy stencil. So little hole punches and little lines. You've got two great stencils that are going to create some kind of pattern. And then the other thing that I've got is stamps. So I've just got these woodblock ones. I don't actually know how well these are going to work. I've not used these yet on this craft. But I did quite like the idea of stamps. I don't have many simple stamps. I need to get some, I think. The simplest one I've got is this star, so we'll have a try. But these woodblock ones are beautiful, so we can try. I know a lot of people are into sort of stamps with their craft, so you could use those. And you could also use it with an ink pad. I'm going to use acrylic paint. But if you've got ink pads for your stamps, try that out. That could work really well. And then the other thing that I've got here is some bubble wrap. So bubble wrap is the best for printing. So we're going to use some bubble wrap to make some nice patterns, nice texture. So we'll use that shortly. That's probably what we'll use the paintbrush book for, to be fair. Let's start stenciling, shall we? Let's start stenciling. Now, I'm going to pop her off centre slightly. I want to leave space for some of the embellishments. Or do I? I want her to definitely be wearing a crown, and I want her to have a heart. We could put the apple, or maybe not. Maybe we'll go centre first. We've got loads of paper. We can do multiple. So let's see what we can do. So the first thing I'm going to do is get my sponge, and I'm going to start with the softer sponge. It's bigger, but it will hopefully create like a more sort of soft stencil. And I'm going to dip it into the paint. And I'm not going to do the whole sponge because that would be messy. and I'm going to press it over the plate a little bit just to get a bit of the excess off. So you can see it's not completely full of ink. Don't want that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to hold down our stencil. I'm wondering how we're going to deal with this arm here. But let's start down near her dress, and I'm going to very lightly dab. I don't want it to be super like opaque yet, because I want to add stuff to it, and that's the really fun bit about this stencil art. So I just want like a kind of very slight mottled effect. We seem to have got around her arm quite well there. So I'm just very lightly pressing down. I just hold down that bit, try and get her arm. That's it. And at this, now we've stenciled over her arm, this bit that was like coming up a bit. It should sort of stay down a bit now. It's got a bit of paint on it, so you should find it easier to do the next few stencils. And the hardest bit really is just holding it all down so it doesn't move. I mean, it just moved then, but I'm going to take it off already so that you can kind of see. I mean, her hair and her sleeve have started to curl up slightly with the ink, but we've got this really beautiful effect. You can kind of see the image. And then what we can do is we can think about her accessories, and we can do different things. So let's start with her crown. So her crown's going to go there, and that is going to be, I'm going to make that quite dark. So I'm going to get a bit more ink on my sponge, and I'm going to press much harder. That's going to be really quick. There we go. Oh, that looks really cool. Love that. Big fan. And then the reason that I wanted to do her body quite light is that I want to be able to see the heart. So the heart is going to go, oh, it's going to go right in the middle of her dress there. And again, I'm going to press really hard so that stencil stands out more. And can you see why I left a gap now? So you can see the heart there. Look, beautiful. Very nice. What have I got on there? A bit of fluff. Lovely. So we can now do, let's do the apple. She can maybe, I think the apple is maybe sort of drop down here. Get a bit more ink. Now, I've not pressed down too hard on this. I've left like it a little bit mottled. So what we could try at this point is we keep the stencil in place, and we'll do this on her as well in a moment. But we can hold down some of these stencils and we can see what happens. And we know they're not going to go past the apple because the apple stencil's still on there. And you might find you get just a slight kind of effect going on. Oh, that looks lovely. I'm hoping at this point you can see why I'm sticking to one single colour. Because we're working with sort of tone, aren't we, rather than colour. Now, again, we can definitely try it with lots of different colours, but I just wanted to do this one particular time. I thought, well, we're not using loads of colours today. We usually do use loads of colours, don't we? So these have really curled up, haven't they? So this is the difference between acetate and tracing paper, is that you do get the curly bits from the ink. But I'm putting her back into place, and we can go over it again, it'll be fine. But I just wanted to try out some of the other options that we've got, and then we'll do another, we can do another one. We can do so many. So there's a few things we can do. I would like to try the stripes, but we'll try that on another one, because the other thing that we can do is we can get ourselves, I'm going to try and do this without wobbling my camera. We can just get ourselves, I did just drop the sponge. Of course I did. 1 second. unbelievably, I managed to drop the sponge and it went under my desk, but it hasn't got black ink everywhere. I'm so proud of myself. I don't know how I managed that. So what I've got is just a scrap piece of paper, and I'm going to rip it. I'm going to rip a bit off, so you have like a ripped area. And I feel like that sort of thing will work quite nicely. So being able to see the rip of the paper. So I'm going to hold it onto, now this is quite tricksy because we've got the tracing paper is a bit curly. That's okay. So hold it into place a little bit. And then again, we're going to go in now, but quite hard on the sponge so that we see that lovely ripped line that we've just popped on there. And so we're just creating colour, like patterns and shapes within the stencil itself. I think that looks beautiful. I'm really pleased with that. Can you see? Looks great. So then what we might do is, if we're looking, so I've done it very lightly on her arm, so we might go over that again. So we can just pop it back into place. And this is why it's so important to make sure that the stencil you're using is super simple, because then we can always pop it back into place and add more to it. And I'm just going to try very carefully to do her hair again. So again, we're going to sort of pop it into place. Now, I probably should have said at the beginning that this is quite messy. I'm hoping you kind of all gathered that from the beginning when I said stencil and I got the big blob of paint out with the sponge. But yes, this can get quite messy, but that's okay. And again, I'm just sort of trying to very carefully just add a bit more ink just so the lines are a bit clearer. Yeah, that's better. So we've got that lovely line. The heart looks great. And then what we can think about doing, if we so wish, is we can add some patterns around the edge. It doesn't just have to be her. We can use elements of her as well. Oh, shall we try and use the cutout? Let's use the cutout. Where is she? Here she is. Because now, because we've got that cutout that we did, we could use her going the opposite way, couldn't we? Oh, okay. So I don't know how without it looking weird. I don't want it to look like she's sort of flying in and trying to grab her. That would be a bit weird. Maybe we just do some of her hair over here. Or just her face, trying to figure out. Maybe I'll save that for another bit because it might look a bit strange. But we can try some other stuff. So what I would like to definitely do is have a go at the bubble wrap. So I've got myself a big bit of bubble wrap here. I have lost my scissors. There they are, hidden under all my paper. And I'm going to just cut, just to make it easier for myself, I'm just going to cut a sort of square out of it, just so I've not got all the excess that are flapping about. Okay, and for this, again, you could paint it with your paintbrush, but actually, I think the sponge might be better. So I'm just going to get some more of my black ink. I've got my sponge. And I'm dabbing onto the bubble wrap, and I'm dabbing onto the sort of poppy side of it because you'll get a better sort of finish on it. And then we can just pop that on there, lightly press. How's that going to look? Oh yeah, beautiful. So we've got a bit of texture coming on now. This might be a good time to maybe use the heart again. I feel like I really, yeah. So I'm going to pop the heart on there and see if we can get a nice dark. That's it. Let's see what happens now. Beautiful. Big fan of that. So what I'm going to do now you can kind of see what I'm doing. We're going to have another experiment. We're going to have another go. Let's see if I can find a piece of paper without getting paint on everything. So we can try something else this time, something a bit different. So we're going to pop her on here again. You can see this is really curled up big time, hasn't it? So what we might do is try and do that bit first, do we think? Well, we're just going to have to do it very, very carefully is what we're going to have to do. So what you could do at this point, in fact, I will do that right now. Because I'm using A4 paper and because I'm using A4 tracing paper, I can tape it down to my cutting board so that it doesn't move around and I can take it off quite easily. Right. Okay. I'm going to get my ink ready on my sponge. So she's ready to go. And then, I mean, I guess what we could do is we could make a start on her on the left side. Okay, let's start with her head because I've got that in place. I'm having to use all my fingers to make sure that's in the right place. So you're definitely going to get paint on your fingers for sure. That's a promise. And then I'm going to move back into this bit here. This bit's fairly easy because it's all staying in the same place. And then we can go down here. You get quite, this is why this sponge I think is better than the other one, because you can get quite a large surface area done. So I'm just trying to sort of press down same time. So this is going to be the hardest bit. So you wouldn't get this if we'd done an animal, would you? If I'd have done a cat, we wouldn't be doing any of this holding down bits and bobs, would we? So just want to at least get her hand in. And this might be actually, now I'm thinking about it, I've gone straight in with the sponge. This might be much easier to do if you've got any fiddly bits, if you're using a paintbrush, because you'll be able to hold it down much better. You'll be able to be neater with it. But I'm sticking with the sponge, you know. I'm gonna solder on with the sponge because I really like the effect it has. So I think I've managed to get all of her in, but I'm going to keep the stencil there because I think we should try some of the stamps, and also I would like to try the stripes as well. So let's start with this little star because I don't know how this is going to work. I've not tried these stamps yet, so maybe I'll try one. Oh yeah, let's just try it on her dress first of all. Oh yeah, that works really nicely. And I don't really mind that they're a bit messy. I kind of think that's kind of the point, isn't it? Lovely. Really happy with that. And then I might try some of these ones, but on the paper and not on her body. So maybe for now, because we've got these fiddly bits here, we could press them down with this stencil we've made with the stripes and sort of hold it into place like that. And then we can go in with our sponge again, see what happens. And hopefully you'll get some really nice patterns. Okay, let's see what happens. Oh, lovely. Okay, I'm going to take the tracing paper off now. So I need to unstick it, and hopefully, oh, that looks great. So happy with that. That looks lovely. I don't know where to put this. I don't know where to put it. It's going to be messy. So you've got this lovely stars and stripe effect on, which I love. I'm so pleased with that. So now we can go in. Oh, let's try this crown. This crown's peeled upwards as well. So that's going to be fun, holding that into place. So maybe we'll do the pointy bits first. Are we? Can I do the pointy bits first? I need more fingers is what I need. Okay, they're in place. And if it goes over the lines a bit, it's fine, isn't it? It's quite an, I find this is quite an abstract stencil art, I think, but that's why I like it, because it's sort of not. Oh yes, wonderful. That looks fantastic. Very happy with that. I'm just wondering if we can, we've not done any of our dots yet, have we? Just wondering if I could do some dots on her sleeve, maybe. I think that would look quite nice. Let's try it. See what happens. I'm going to try and be super careful because I don't want it to go over the edge of her sleeve, but we might just get a couple of dots on there, which might look nice. Yes, got some dots on there. And in fact, I feel like we're maybe ready to do some, hang on a second, I've got more stuff here. So I've got this, I just found, and I thought this will work perfectly with this craft. I've not tried it yet. So, you know, you get like kids kind of, you know, they're like cardboard cutouts and you have to take the bits out and then they use the bits. So I've just saved all the sort of offcuts. So anything that you have to sort of take out of cardboard and you're left with holes, you could sort of keep and then use for your stencils. So this is just found stencils. I'm thinking like this archway here could work quite well. I'm going to cut that out. And then we could do something with it, you know. So what we might do is just do a nice simple layer on it. And then we might keep that there. And then we could do, maybe we could do our stripes again. And you can decide what sort of angle you put them at. Press really hard on the stripes so they're darker than the last layer. Lovely. Very happy with that. And this feels like now, I think I want like a row of circles as well. So again, just get a little bit more ink. And I kind of don't mind if it goes over the edge. Kind of like all these edges and lines that you see. Again, it's super abstract, but I think it works. I think it's really effective. I think as well, this would look really nice on craft card, wouldn't it? On a sort of brown card. I think that would look really nice. Do I now want some, I'm thinking I might want some bubble wrap again. I'm going to do some bubble wrap and then I'm going to do the lovely woodblock ones that we've got. So there's so many different sort of found objects that we can use in this craft. I think that's why I love it so much. You could try, you know, printing anything at all. You could try leaves. There's so many options. Any sort of household items you have that might leave a nice, interesting imprint. See, now we're sort of looking at like making it look like the ground. That looks lovely. Let's try one of these stamps. Let's try this one. And again, if you've got like ink, oh, actually, I could sponge it on, couldn't I? Don't need to log. I was just going to blob it in the paint. I think that's probably a really messy way of doing it, but we could sponge that. And that works really nicely. Beautiful. Oh, that looks great. I'll put one there. So we're just creating all these different patterns. I think I want like a really dark bit here. So I'm going to go in again with my ripped paper. So I'm just going to rip a bit of paper, simple. And I'm going to, oh, if I do it like that, we could create a really nice, or do I want it to go this way? Oh, maybe we'll do 2 bits. Okay, that's it. That's what I want. So I've got 2 bits of ripped paper, creating a line that is obviously ripped. I think that's the effect I want to go for, and I want that to be really dark and solid. See how that looks. Yes, beautiful. And I'm going to do the same thing along here. Maybe I'm just going to do sort of that bit there. I just want some more really dark bits, almost like there, the sky. Beautiful. And then the last thing I want to do on this one is use one of the other stencils we made. I'm trying to decide if I want the heart or if I want the apple. I think we'll go with the heart. The heart looks like the one that's least rolled up. So we'll maybe pop the heart here. Easy peasy. That's looking good. And then what else? So I'm tempted to sort of have a go at these random little shapes that I found. And this is why it's really important that when we did at the beginning, we traced our image. We want to keep that image because, as you can see, this will work for today. This tracing paper will work perfectly if I want to make a few more throughout the day. But once you've done that session, you're probably going to want to chuck those and then do another set. So keep hold of the image that you do decide to use for that reason. But things like this, like sort of card stamp stencils that have, made with quite thick material, you can keep forever and you can do it over and over again. Usually with stenciling, if you're using cardboard, it will just get stronger over time because more and more ink will sort of be used. So what should we do? I don't know. I feel like I want to randomly try this kind of half of this kind of weird shape, which I think was some kind of animal. See what happens there. It's just something, isn't it? It's just something that's a bit different. Doesn't have to make sense. Just looks quite interesting. You're creating texture. It is. It's very. This is a very, very relaxing craft, Chris. It's like, even if you're happy to accept that you're going to get messy fingers and you're going to get ink on everything or paint on everything, it's really mindful because all you're thinking about as you do it is what you want to do next. So your next bit, you go, oh, I think I want a heart here, or I might try this now and I might try this. It's all very experimental, but I think that's why it looks so good. I think it looks so good because you're just experimenting with different shapes. I'm just looking back at this one now and I really love like this line here on her dress. I'm going to go back to this one actually. Last thing I'm going to do, I want to do something along here. So I think what I want, again, I want that ripped paper effect. And I think I want it to go all the way along. I'm tempted to just use this bit here because it's the same width. I'm just going to cut that bit off. I think that would look really nice as a kind of, I know what I'm going to do. So I'm going to turn this upside down. Yeah, I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing. So I'm going to get some ink. And again, I'm just going to hold it down, go all the way along. This is going to sort of create the floor of the image. And also because we're just sort of experimenting with shapes and textures, you don't have to wait for things to dry because it doesn't really matter if it gets a bit smudged. I think that kind of adds to it almost. So it's kind of one of those where the things that go wrong are probably the things that look the best. So don't be afraid to sort of go wrong and get messy and things to happen quite naturally. Oh, yes, that looks great. Really happy with that. That's sort of, that's really made that, I think. I'm going to do a few more extra bits and bobs on here, I think. I want to try those stripes again. Let's get those stripes out. Where shall we do the stripes? Maybe up here. We don't have anything up here yet, do we? Do I want it to go that way? I think I want it to go that way. It can go there. Okay, I quite like that it's gone over the edge as well. I'm going to go over the edge a bit more. Really stippled effect. Very nice. That's given it something, hasn't it? And then maybe the last thing we'll do is we'll just do one more of those stencils. I do really like this one, but also the star. Let's maybe try the star again. Let's instead of putting it straight into the ink, we'll just yeah. Love it. I love this sort of random effect you get with it. Fantastic. Oh, I'm so happy with that. Now, I would say, just because the camera is not like the clearest of all, it looks a bit like on the camera, I can see like the detail of her face doesn't look as strong as it does in real life. So I'll try and hold it a bit closer. It does, it is there, I promise it's there. But the other thing as well is you can always add to it afterwards. You can always do details. So we could go in with a black pen and do the details that we've missed. So we could put a little eye on her and things like that. But the main thing is that it's a really simple way of making a stencil and using random bits and bobs that you're going to have in your house to create these lovely textures and details. And all you need is like one colour, a sponge, some acetate if you've got strong fingers, and you can make these really beautiful, interesting bits of art. I'm going to stop there because otherwise I will just carry on doing this all day and you guys will all fall asleep. You're like, Rosie, stop talking. But yeah, so all we've done is drawn our very, very simple image onto a piece of paper. You could print something if you wanted. Again, I reckon animals would work really well. I'm tempted to have a go at an animal. And then you're going to trace that onto your tracing paper and cut it out. And then use all your bits and bobs to have a real experiment and have fun with it and enjoy it and go wrong. I promise if you go wrong, it will look better. Okay, that's me done. I really like those. I'm gonna sit. Now my mind's wearing. I'm trying to think what I'm going to do with them. Something fun. Okay, I'll leave it there. Thank you so much all for watching. I hope you enjoyed yourselves. Please send us any pictures of any anything that you've done, and you can rewatch this back on the archives if you want to pause it. And I'll be back again soon with some more crafts. Can't remember when, in a week or two, with more crafty things. My name's Rosie. My business is Rosie Ramona. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. Enjoy the sunshine. I'm going to go and lie in it now, I think. Thank you so much. Bye.